Welcome, Stephen, back to the Leaders Who Care series, and a man that has the whole world behind him, basically, literally. um, hey, good to hear that you're well amidst, as we talked about, all the fires that you and I are having in the west coast and the smoke. But we're happy to have you back, and this is a revisit we're doing with select Leaders Who Care, so that you can share a little bit about. Give us an update on what's happening with you, what's happening with the organizations and other leaders who care around the world, and that you want to share. So welcome, and tell us what's been going on.
A lot.
I know. Give us the top 10. David Letterman.
Well, you know, I've been doing interviews since the 1980s, and it's all donated time. I donate the funding, the resources, and so on, and including the hosting in it. And it's appeared in many, many channels. For many, many years, it's appeared with the ACM, Association for Computing Machinery, which is #1 in computing science. And for 8 years, the IEEE organization is, Steve, please, can we do the interviews with us as well? And because I want to kind of do a separation between these two dominant organizations globally in computing, I finally agreed. So my interviews are appearing also with IEEE, the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers. It's the world's largest engineering nonprofit organization. So just like ACM is #1 in computing science, they're #1 in engineering, without question. Many other standards are used globally. So my lead-off interview was with Doug Wilson, and he's the CEO of the Leadership Alliance in Southern California. And they have this great vision for there's $1.3 trillion economy in Southern California. And that is to create an AI ecosystem, which would be the center of excellence for the world. And I'm actually helping them as well. But it's such a grand vision because it's about helping with jobs and improving the economy and education and having inclusion and diversity and social impact. And they're already #1 in PhD graduates in the US. They're #3 in AI jobs in AI. So definitely the infrastructure, the pieces are in place to then create the center of excellence, an AI super hub. So just a grand vision. And of course, it'll be a talent magnet. It'll be a template for other regions of the world as well, and also for the US. So that's kind of one project that rolled out of, in essence, or aligned with my interviews, appearing with this amazing computing engineering organization. So since I agreed in August to those interviews, now there's going to be like 10 already since then, right? So, and about 100 this year. So continually rolling them out. It's like what we're doing here, just a video interview, but it's really with the top minds and leaders in the world. So it's, and it's unscripted. so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Another update would be, in fact, tomorrow I have our regular meeting with the World Health Organization. They bring together leaders around the world to, collaborate, co-create with them to support what they're doing in terms of managing health and improving health worldwide, including supporting, the needs and the challenges and solutions in the pandemic. And
I have a question on that. I heard yesterday, an announcement that about the what's the word I'm looking for? The riddance, not the word I'm looking for. The eradication of polio, which the WHO has been involved with, and they talked about how all those partnerships, WHO and so many other partnerships around the world, eliminated it finally, totally. Obviously comparing it to what we need to do for COVID.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, there is a coalition, a vaccine coalition with, I believe now, something like over 170 countries on board. But really, we should have all of the countries on board because you really do need coordination. You can't have a situation where one country isn't involved because then it can, rise again and it's not monitored and so on. So definitely, you want really the world to come together in unity because it's such a big problem. And you want to protect against future pandemics as well. But I'm not speaking on behalf of the World Health Organization, so just want to make
Got
that
it.
clear. I just volunteer my time to give input to this meeting they hold regularly, and it's to gather input from industry leaders around the world and to ways that we can activate our networks to help when they have a particular challenge in a particular region of the world. How can we help in a meaningful way? So, or if they have a new focus group starting up, can we bring people from our communities to volunteer to support resources and other things to these different focus groups? So a lot of very great work. So that's continuing.
Hmm.
AI for Good, which
Right.
I went on the road in 2016 to sell it to all the different UN agencies and member countries and corporations and so on. Of course, AI for Good became a movement hosted by the United Nations Specialized Technology Agency called the ITU, or International Telecommunications Union. Well, that program is continuing, but now is digital. And in fact, rather than having one sort of focused event for a week in May, we have weekly events happening throughout the year and including into next year. And in fact, our audience reach is even bigger because it's, anybody from the world can then access and get engaged. And in fact, next week,
Exactly.
the IEEE, that's number one organization in engineering, has partnered with the UN Specialization ITU, which is the number one technology UN agency, to produce an international conference on AI for Good. And it's over 3 days next week, starting Monday. And I'm in the opening keynote.
You got a few, one each of these things would be a full-time job for a lot of people. But the great thing is you truly are one of the leaders who care because you're contributing, your talent, your expertise, other people connecting the dots. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah, yeah, especially especially these times of transformational change. And in fact, just recently as well, I did a keynote for Digital Africa, and that's about how can we use this idea of Society 5.0 and transformational technology to uplift and to ensure diversity, inclusion, and connectivity, and so on. I also that same week did a talk with AI for Good Youth, which was amazing. And then that same week, I also did another one for The Hague. So the interesting thing is when you do 3 different talks on 3 different topic areas, that's 3 different preps.
It is. It's, I don't think people, I've always said, if you look at a really good doctor or an actor or an athlete or an engineer, anytime there's the ones that are really good make it look easy. And anytime someone says, well, I could do that, that's easy. You have no idea how good they are because they made it look so easy.
Yeah, and if you want to include new information and so on, you have to do a lot of research and then cite it, of course, in your presentation. In fact, when I did the YPO one at their annual EDGE conference, they hold one annual CEO conference a year out of the 5,000 events they hold every year. Well, I researched and in my rehearsals and involving travel, because it was in Cape Town, so that was 5 days of travel alone.
Yeah.
My total time was over 1,000 hours. So, and a full-time equivalent or an FTE is a measure of full-time work for a person. So they call it an FTE. That's 1,500 hours.
Yeah, it's well, at least you're saving the time on travel now and the environment also. So I
Right.
guess that's silver lining. I'm not sure, but no, it's amazing. It's amazing what's going on, and and you're also, I just got to always put this in, you're on the board of Million Peacemakers, which for that incredible program called Nonflict that the world needs big time right now. But, you know, if you were to summarize your feelings that you get from the people you're interacting, engaging with on these addresses you're making and the questions, what do you feel? What do you feel is the feeling of the world right now?
You know, an interesting question come up. I was interviewed by a magazine called AI Times Journal, and they talked about all the work I do, and they said, you know what, is there something that you're gathering from all the speeches you do? And you know, I said I could really condense this into this process called Nonflict from Million Peacemakers, founded by and chaired by Stephen Hecht. And I said, you know what, you have to know yourself and the other, and really put yourself in other people's shoes, walk their shoes, really have empathy and understanding. That's really critical at this time.
Yeah.
And I said, then you need to look at collaboration in some way and looking at what are the things we have in common? What is our, and Stephen Heck calls this a shared reality, because everybody has something in common. If you look and try to understand each other, you'll find things in common. And then using that as a foundation or base, co-create. Do something together to have impact, to do social good, to amplify opportunities, to solve global challenges. And precisely at this time, this is especially important because we're in the midst of a planet reset, like never before in the history of humanity.
Right.
That was happening anyways because of the fourth industrial revolution coming out in 2016, which became Society 5.0 from Japan, and KNVI of the Netherlands calls it Smart Humanity. Sort of variations of the fourth industrial revolution, but showing that it's progress. So definitely it's in part of government and industry and academia and media, but society and culture, and it drives every aspect of our lives. That Society 5.0 was already an inflection point, an historical change for the world where 5,000 years of change are now condensed into like 10 years. It's just amazing change. And then you have this health issue worldwide, right? The pandemic. And that has further compressed what was going to happen over the next 10 years. Then you also have things like climate action and how do you, manage and work with and help refugees and migrants, and
Yeah.
that cybersecurity crisis and things like that on the internet, and the rise of fake news, which spreads 6 times faster. And then how about the economy, the future of economy and jobs and education and food security? And how do you manage all of those aspects as well? And then look around you. What do you see? You see evidence of climate challenges.
Yep.
Look around you. What do you see? You see evidence of cybersecurity challenges. What do you see? You see evidence of unrest. All of these are exacerbated and really compressed again, as I mentioned. And so we have to co-create. We have to collaborate to address these problems, but they also become opportunities too.
They are opportunities, and I think they're, in talking to a lot of other leaders who care, they see this as a moment of an opportunity for dramatic change. And before we go, just to, a couple of examples is Eco Peace Middle East. You've got the Jordanians, Palestinians, Israelis working together for water management. You've got now the UAE and Bahrain signing an agreement with Israel to do work together and things like that. Never, who would have thought? And so many more, collaborations. And I agree, something like Nonflict, which by the way is a collaborator in this whole project we have now called Business for Peace, is to business leaders take the helm of bringing people together for the betterment of their business and their communities. So I think you're right on. And as always, I thank you for your contributions and your smile. It's always great to see. And so we'll be talking again soon. I guarantee it. Thanks.
Well, it's such a pleasure. And remember, I just talked about 2% of what I'm doing right now. So.
Well, in LA, they say, you always got to keep them wanting for more and creating the sequel. So that's what you're going for here. Thanks, Stephen. Always appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to talk with you, Mark. You're a change maker. You're definitely a transformational globally. So thank you for taking the time with me.
Totally my pleasure. Take care.